Welcome to Shamanic Voices, a podcast aimed at bringing our ancient indigenous Nordic wisdom traditions and perspectives, bringing these to bear on the challenges that we face in our modern world. I am your host, Georg, and we will often be joined by co-hosts, Laurie as our producer, and you can find our bi-monthly episodes on most major platforms. And if you enjoy this and like to read as well, please look up our blog with dozens of articles on health-related topics at www.teutonichealing.com. And now, let's get on with our show. Good evening. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Shamanic Voices. This is where we try to find traditional wisdom and apply the traditional wisdom of our Nordic and Finnish and other Teutonic ancestors to the challenges and opportunities of our modern lives. We invite guests in who have access to what we consider universal problems or issues or themes that are relevant to all of humanity. And tonight we will be interviewing Sonali. And Sonali, you'll be talking to us a lot about what your life has been like as a targeted individual. But to begin with, why don't you share with our audience a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and what it's like living in the U.S., how long you've been here, all that kind of stuff.
Thank you. I am Sonali. I was born and raised in India. I've lived in the US for 35 years now. And my TI journey started about 17 years ago. And there's a little bit of activity, stalking activity prior to that. But the real TI journey began 17 years ago in Atlanta, Georgia. I had a childhood friend, and it turned out later on that we were related. She was a distant cousin-in-law. And we reconnected, and she would visit me, and she would talk about one particular friend of mine who lived in New Delhi a lot. I mean, like every day. We had about 150 friends in common because we went to the same school. But that was the one person she talked about every single day. And that piqued my interest because a really, really long time ago, when I was a teenager, this girl's husband used to be a neighbor. And way back when I was a teenager, I had a little bit of a crush on this guy. So something told me that my distant cousin-in-law knew about it, and she was just trying to figure out if I was curious about where this guy was, what he did, where he lived, that kind of thing. And I just ignored it. And then about 2 years after that, this started in 1997. In about 2002, I think it was, one of the classmates started an alumni website. And I got a message on that. My email is such and thus, and it was this guy's email. So I don't know if it was him or if it was someone trolling me, because it was very common, especially in one's 30s, for people to reconnect with their childhood sweetheart or stuff like that. Especially Indian movies promote romance so much that was an Indian obsession. And Indian society, when I was growing up, was very, very restrictive. So very often when we were kids, boys and girls didn't hang out together. Very often we never met the person we had a crush on. This was someone I'd never talked to. My parents knew him. My dad had trained him, but I had never talked to him, so I never took it seriously enough. And then along comes 2008. I had been talking to my husband about us getting a separation because he was having a lot of conflict with the kids. And I didn't want to raise kids in that atmosphere. So I said, why don't we just get two separate homes? And he didn't agree to it. Eventually, I moved out with the kids to Texas. When I got to Texas, I realized that this man was stalking me in Texas. So I called the cops, as I had in Atlanta, Georgia also, and I reported him um, for hacking into my, it was, I think, Microsoft Word, because I'm a writer and there were spelling errors all over the place that I hadn't made and that Microsoft would correct on its own if, if it was an error, but these were uncorrected, very Indian style spelling errors. So I knew who it was. But when I called the cops, they said, "We're pretty sure it's your husband and nobody else." So I believed them.
So,
Anyway, when the,
so you heard from this guy, and he's in New Delhi when you hear from him, but
yes,
then he's stalking you, or at least electronically stalking you in Houston, or in Texas
Austin, Texas, yes.
and Austin.
I
Okay.
called him one day. I got his phone number from another friend. I called him one day to kind of tell him, "Hey, I know you're in my phone lines and I don't talk to liars. And don't tell your wife I called you. Don't want to make this uncomfortable. I'm just telling you, I know what you're up to and I know you're lying. I don't talk to liars." That was my only conversation ever with him in my whole life. And in Texas, I had gone to the domestic violence people to report my case to transfer the case from Atlanta to Georgia. And I realized very quickly he was talking to them as well. So then I went to the cops a second time. And I noticed that my neighbors would say the weirdest things about my life back in India that he would know because his wife went to school with me. So clearly, his wife was also stalking me.
Okay. Now, he stalking you, physically stalking you when you were in Atlanta before you moved to Austin?
No, this was entirely electronic.
Entirely electronic. So he wasn't
Yeah.
physically walking behind you or anything like that.
No.
Okay.
And then I took a course at St. Edward's University, and my instructor there was ex-CIA. And somehow or another, behind my back, they might have been they might have been seeing international hacking there. So it appeared to me that they had a conversation, and my instructor sort of told me that there's something fishy going on and you need to know. About the same time, I enrolled my kids in martial arts. And the second lesson there, the instructor came out and he said, "You think I'm an instructor, but actually, I am the chief anti-terrorism officer from such and such country. And I train all of Austin Police Department's cops. And we saw some fishy activity in your internet. Let me know if you need police protection." So I asked him, "But why do I need police protection? These are just crazy people." And his face completely drained of all color. And he said, "But you have no clue what is really going on behind your back. You need police protection, you tell me." So I said, "If I need it, I'll definitely let you know." Then I got a job at Facebook. And the first day during orientation, they told us that they will be monitoring our home internet activity for the entire family. So I told them, when you look in there, you will find Indian hackers in there. And this happened on a Monday or a Tuesday. By Thursday, they flew in one of their top security engineers from Menlo Park. This guy was following me all over the building. He was there at breakfast, he was there at lunch, he sat behind me the whole day at work for 3 days. And then they called in a meeting with the entire security there, my entire team, half of management, and they slipped me a sheet of paper with an IP address on it. And I said, go to this website and put this in the visitors' comments. I had just enough time to see that that building was the Prime Minister's office in New Delhi. And I saw the picture of the gentleman whose office I was supposed to visit and leave a visitor, his IP address as visitor's comment. But before I could accomplish it, my laptop crashed. And starting the next day, one by one, they let my entire team go. And we'd been there just for orientation. It was like, no, we can't handle this. The whole team is leaving. So I had that job for like 2 weeks.
Now let's back up just a moment, Sonali. As I understand, you were saying this college instructor of yours, you later find out is also a CIA guy or has been CIA in the past. But you say, so he was responsible because CIA does reach out to other countries. Maybe he was training another police force in another country. Do you know which country it was that he was working with? Was it with India?
Oh no, he's ex-CIA. He was just probably just monitoring everybody's internet activity and saw or maybe this guy called him. I don't know what exactly happened. I've never asked him that because he might not be willing to share all the details. So I didn't ask him for the details, but I asked him, do you know anyone in the FBI I can talk to? Because in the meantime, these Indian stalkers sent me a message through my aunt saying that they can have someone run a car over my stepmother because she's getting in the way of me getting my inheritance. And I was like, now this is getting very sketchy. So I went to the instructor and said, can you introduce me to someone in the FBI? Because I went to a lawyer and the lawyer said that local police is not doing anything about the stalking harassment because it's only the FBI that has jurisdiction over this.
Right. That makes sense.
So I went to the FBI and they said, just to lower your expectations, we're not going to be calling New Delhi. And I felt it was so important because this guy, he had just been transferred to an intelligence department in a different state. But prior to that, 5 or 7 years, he had been in the Indian equivalent of the Secret Service.
Okay, the guy that was in the Indian equivalent of the Secret Service, he was retired CIA, or is this another guy?
No, this is the Indian guy.
Okay. Oh, the
Was in,
stalker. The stalker?
the stalker
Okay, the
was,
stalker had been in intelligence, had been
yes,
in your equivalent to the Secret Service. Okay, good.
yes. So he had at some point hijacked my email account and sent himself an email from my Hotmail account.
Wow.
So, but what happened was he's a bad speller. So he spelled he used his daughter's name as the name. It was Bhasha at interpol.net or .org or .com. And he spelled Interpol as Interpole.
Yeah, there's no E on the end. That's correct.
Yes. So it came back, it bounced, or I would have never found out.
She. So did his daughter, in fact, work for international police?
No, he had access to Interpol tools and he was just using his daughter's name as a cover.
I see.
His daughter at that time must have been 15
Oh,
or 16.
okay. Now, by the way, just to give us some more background, so you're living in Texas at this point. How old are your children at this point, and how many did you have?
I have 3 kids. At that point, my oldest was 18 and he was living with his dad in Atlanta. He was going off to college that year. My younger two were 14 and 12, and they were in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
So there was some interference with my children's attendance and uh, emails from school. So I went and talked to the school principal. And it turns out that the school principal was married to an army officer stationed in Iraq. And on their satellite phone call, she managed to tell him about it. Do you know a mom came by and said that someone's stalking her from India and interfering with the emails and school emails and attendance and everything? So he offered to look it up. He looked it up And he told his wife to tell me, the principal to tell me, that they're using a software that costs $39.99. If you want to do the same thing to him, you could also do the same thing to him. It's publicly available.
Now, at this point
Yes.
in this development, do you have any idea why this guy is stalking you? What's in it for him?
What I gathered was he was talking to my dad's sister every single day, and he was collecting family anecdotes about first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth cousins. And he had already sent someone to the land office in the town where my dad lived and collected all the details of my dad's property. My dad was a cop, and before that, he had been in the army. My first conversation with my dad about this was, my dad told me, these people, it's a land grab. These people are all thieves.
So
At that,
basically, you had inherited some land and they were trying to take it from you,
yeah,
some land back in India. Okay.
yeah. And the angle that this man was playing was, hey, she's left her husband. Maybe she and I can get together. We can both convert to Islam, and then it becomes legal for him to have two wives. And he was even he was suggestions to my aunt about how I should crank out a couple of anchor babies here in the US. I patiently listened to him, and I told my aunt, I already have two religions to follow. My dad's raised, born raised Hindu, my mom's born raised Christian, and I can't add a third religion to the mess. It's just too much. So thank you, but I'm not going to be able to do this.
Wow. So this is your dad telling you this. Do I understand you correctly?
This is my dad's sister telling me all of
Your dad's
this.
sister. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
But the problem was,
Or you could all convert to Scientology or some cult like.
so then I started studying him like a specimen. But he kept thinking that I'm an idiot. So he went and told everybody in India. We know a lot of people in common because my dad was a cop, he was a cop. My dad had trained cops for about 15 years. So he knew about 1,500 cops really well. This man went and told everybody that I was chasing him, trying to get him to leave his wife and marry him. And this woman was like, boo hoo hoo, Sonali is making my life miserable. The whole time she was having an affair with somebody else. What the upshot of this was, they had joined the Indian mafia. They have a couple of handlers who are retired army officers in India. And they were asking me to contact every Indian American who was the child of a defense officer or a scientist, because I went to a school for a couple of years, high school. I did where all the defense scientists' kids went. And many of the kids are here now. So they wanted me to go visit them. Then I have friends who are half Russian. The parents live in India, and they wanted my dad to go visit the couple where the wife's Russian and the husband's Indian. My dad was like, I don't want to meet them because by that time my mom had passed away. My dad was remarried, and these people knew my mom really well. So my dad was like, I don't want to introduce my new wife to my old friends.
Okay.
So that whole thing fell flat. But what they did tell me, what this guy used to talk about with my dad and my dad's sister, was things like the Russian space program and the Chinese space program are so advanced, they have left the US in the dust. And I might not be a scientist, but I am the daughter of a cop who's also a veteran. My ears went doing. I'm like, why is he talking about the space program? Why is he asking me to visit all the kids of the military scientists that I know here in Austin?
That's a good question. And all of
Yeah.
our listeners are probably wondering the same thing. Why would he be telling you?
And uh, I wasn't, I had, after the Facebook job, I couldn't find another job for about a year. I finally got hired as a contractor at Google. I got there and I had a lot of trouble even getting my appointment letter because my emails would disappear. And the Indian company that was subcontracted They disappeared. They just wouldn't return my calls. Finally, I got through to one of them, and they said the girl who was handling your case, she hasn't given a resignation, but she simply stopped showing up at work. So I called my interviewer and I told him, my account's hacked. So if you are planning to hire me, please have someone call me personally. So he then found an Indiana based company, and then they did the paperwork, and I got the job. Within a week, these Indian hackers flooded my workplace with a fake sex tape of me.
You mean they
It
got a
was
body double who looked enough like you that she could pass for you? Is that how they
no,
did the fake sex
no.
tape?
My boss is ex-army. He sent the tape to a lab and they worked out what happened. What they had already done was they had planted a camera in the ceiling fan where I slept. So they had footage of me sleeping. They took that, they put a sheet of glass on it. They had someone wear a wig. They hired someone with the same body type as someone I know, not
Uh-huh.
just know, but I'm related to. And they put a wig on that person to make him look like this person, and they created a fake sex tape. But apparently it was very fake looking, so nobody bought it.
Okay, so what purpose does the sex tape use? I mean, you're a single woman at this point, a single mom
Yes,
with three kids. So who gives a damn who you sleep
e-
with?
exactly. But in India, that is used to be considered a very big stigma.
Oh, okay.
And in the US, of course, nobody cared. But in India, people didn't believe it. People who knew me well didn't believe it. Even in the US, it was apparently very fake looking. And then, surprise, surprise, I started getting the weird, on my workflow, I started getting the strangest one line messages. The first one that caught my attention was, "She's a Russian stooge," directed at me. "She's a Russian stooge." And then another one that caught my eye was, AI is getting so good that in a few years, you won't be able to tell between a fake sex tape and a real sex tape.
Wow.
And another one was things that got my attention. Another one was death threats. I started getting death threats from the Indian side saying the exact phrase was that came through my aunt, "I will do to you what Erasmus did to your grandmother." And my blood went cold. Way back in 1972, my grandmother, who was a very successful business owner, had been found dead under mysterious circumstances. It was blamed on her daughter in law's father, but all their money was also stolen, their property was stolen, and they had my grandmother had plenty of money, and my uncle and his wife had nothing because it was all gone. So clearly, it wasn't her father who did it. And that got me thinking because there were all these death threats. They were talking about killing my dog.
By this time, of course, they know you're living in the US, you're not back in India.
Yes,
And the whole point is, I mean, that always when people do extortion or coercion or some sort of crime against someone, there's some reward that the criminal is looking for. So the only reward here is the property you were going to inherit in India. Is that correct?
that and all of the bank accounts they had access to, they drained my dad's bank account to zero. His life savings, they drained it to zero. Imagine these are army or retired army officers and police officers doing that to a fellow veteran and retired police officer who had trained them. Just the shamelessness, the heartlessness of that. A veteran doing that to a veteran. It
I
was
agree.
just unheard of. This level of lechery has been unheard of. So one day, one of the army officers got on a third line with my dad, and because they were telling me to marry this guy, sponsor him, that kind of thing. And I said, no, I'm already married, don't want to marry, I can't be married to two people, and I'm definitely not converting to Islam. So, and for women, it doesn't work that way anyway. So this guy got on the line and he says, I command 10,000 men and you will not obey me. So I said, but you know what? In like 2003, I gave up my Indian citizenship and I took the US citizenship. So I don't pick up arms on your command. You have to remember that you're talking to someone who is no longer an Indian citizen. But they had been lying to their higher ups, saying that I was under their full control. So they kept the racket going and they just kept stepping it up. They started talking to my kids' friends. And I noticed that my medical records came back with a change that shouldn't have been there. So clearly they had altered my medical records. And at this time, I found out that I had been drugged and sexually assaulted while I slept in my own home. Someone had broken in. I didn't know who it was. So I went to the FBI to tell them, hey, you guys are watching too. Why don't you check the audio visual and find out who it was? And they checked it. It had happened. And they said, but no, you invited him into your home. So I said, well, but I don't know who it was. How could I have invited him? And over the next few weeks, it turned out that the place where I worked, the chief security officer was an FBI agent, and it had been him. It took me a couple of weeks to work out that it was a chief security officer who had flown in from California to Austin and managed to drug me so I didn't know a thing and assault me. What they had done was they had piped in a nerve agent through the air conditioning system,
Which only affected your office?
my home.
Oh, at home. Okay, that's what I was
Home.
trying to make sure.
So
Okay.
he had piped in a nerve agent through the air conditioning system. So not just me, but the kids were also completely knocked out. So when he came in, nobody heard him. I had no memory of it. I just started getting flashbacks 3 days down the road. And that's how I went to the FBI office and they said, but you invited him. But I said, but you're not making sense.
Wait, who said you invited him?
The FBI agent who met me.
Oh, the FBI. Oh, gee.
Yes. And the strangest part about that was he was sitting with his laptop open and he was talking to me, reading lines off the laptop screen. And at
Reading
some point,
lines? Wow.
reading lines, at one point he said, Google is watching you. So then the FBI agent said, well, they're watching you, not me. Then I found out that the chief security officer at Google was an FBI agent and a veteran. He had been an admiral and a Navy SEAL. And I wasn't the first victim. The girl who used to sit in front of me, he had done the same thing to her. He had called her to California and done the same thing to her. And
So
I
just
got
basically wherever they had lived, he knew the past address and all that. He did the same thing to her. So he went to where she was living and piped
no,
in a nerve agent or a knockout agent of some sort.
no. He asked her to fly to California.
Okay.
When she was there, he asked her to stay for a week. When she was there, he did that to her. And because she was drugged, she too took a long time to figure out that that had happened to her.
So basically, this guy was knocking out and then raping a woman in her sleep. Is that correct? Do I understand you correctly?
Yes.
Wow.
And the FBI was watching, the Indian government was watching. Nobody made a 911 call. And when I went to complain to the FBI, they said, but you invited him. I said, I don't know who did it. I'm here to ask you, look at your AV feed, tell me who did it so I can press charges. And the next couple of weeks, I figured out from what people were telling me is that security officer is an FBI agent. So they're going to, protect him. Then I left my job. My daughter got admission here in Purdue. So we
Now wait,
moved
if
here.
he's your security officer, a former FBI agent, is that what you mean?
Yes. At that time, he was still with the FBI. And they told him, you cannot do things like these. You have to stop. Because apparently he was doing this all over the place. And then because they said you cannot do it, he did it again. He came to Indy, did the same thing again. This time
And
they fired him.
Okay, and this was an actual security officer with Google, is that correct?
Chief Security Officer.
Chief
You got,
security, that's, gee.
he went to Kelly School of Business here in Indiana. He was here for 10 years. So he knew people in Indiana. They knew him, but they fired him anyway, which was at least one good step forward.
So I guess there
But
was no way to sue Google for letting this happen because there's no proof that it did happen if they're claiming that you invited him. Did they have a digital record where you were supposedly typing, inviting him to your house or something?
they have been, when they picked him, the cops picked him up in India. When he did it in India a second time, they picked him up. And you know what he said?
No.
He said he showed them a Craigslist ad and told them that I was a prostitute. I had advertised my address on Craigslist and he was just a paying customer. He never told them that he was my boss and he had done this once before. But the cops picked up on all of those lies because, news travels.
Now,
So then he got fired.
just to make clear for our listeners, you're talking about in Indiana, not
Yes.
India. Okay. You
Yes.
said it kind of quickly and people might misunderstand. Okay.
Yes. So he followed me all the way to Indiana. And I couldn't understand why he was doing this. He had told me, he had sent me a message on Facebook that he was going to India. He said, I'm going to India, deal with it. And those messages always show up as spoofs where memes should be. So if you go to look them up, you can't. But the FBI, CIA, military all had been tracking it, so they had all seen it. When he came back from India, he sent me a message. They gave me money and I took it because they are the mafia. I'm very worried that if I didn't take it, they would kill me. So I just took the money.
Now you say this guy went to India. So was he an Indian American who had worked for the FBI? Is that and then ended up as security officer at Google? Is that who he is?
No, he is American, born and raised here in California. And he was sent to India to investigate. But when he went to India, he was picked up by the Indian stalker and his wife, probably. And they passed on him some money pretty much to continue the whole drug and rape thing and terrorize me because I didn't know what had happened behind my back. My dad, at this point, had come to the US to visit one time, and he had told me that these people are totally mafioso. It's all about the money. They are attacking a friendly country. They are just so shameless. They've benefited so much from the US and they're attacking the US. So when my dad told me that, I decided to keep informing the FBI, at least through, even though now they were saying that we don't know who you are and we've never seen you and that kind of thing, because they're trying to cover up the rape. I still kept sending them those leave a tip for the FBI messages online. And in Indiana, this man started posing as my daughter's stepdad to be, and he started talking to her boyfriend's parents who were in England. But it all, and this man has never talked to me.
Actually, I have read histories of targeted individuals before where women were knocked out and raped while they were unconscious. I can't understand why a man would want a woman who is unconscious. As a man, I can't even conceive of that. So these people must already be really
They're
crazy.
very crazy.
Especially this guy's already married as well, right?
Yes.
Gee.
And what he said later on in one of those spoofy messages was that he was asked to drug and rape people by his higher ups. Because by this time, I realized he had Russian handlers. Because he was sending me messages like, it's too late. The time has come when you have to join the enemy and get rich.
So
And
you think this was to some extent an attempt to recruit you? So
yes, yes,
let's
because
think about why they want. So I'm
yes,
guessing you are an IT specialist. You have a lot of advanced training, or you wouldn't have been working for Google and Facebook anyway if you weren't.
I was an analyst and they really liked my work, not so much on the IT side, but on the cognitive side, the reading text and making a quick judgment on pass or not pass by certain criteria. So they were sending me job descriptions which read it will be, you're very creative, so we want you to make the brochures and we want you to manage this, but there will also be sex requirements. You will have to sleep with whoever we pick for you to sleep with.
That's a very unusual job requirement. I believe you would find that that's illegal in the US. It would be called sexual harassment.
Yes, so I
So they-
told them that.
Yeah.
And especially at Google, who does this at Google? They said, no, that's the job you're going to get. So I said, then thank you, let me go. I'll find something else. Then they said, no, this project is halfway done. We cannot finish it without you. Please stay. We are begging you to stay. Even the owner's mom is begging you to stay.
Okay, now it's begging you to stay. So where are you when you're being made this offer? You're still at Google or not?
I am unofficially on the project, but they have 3 or 4 or 5 layers of false conservatorships. They declared me medically incompetent by altering my medical records, and they enrolled me in some kind of MK Ultra thing. So there are 3 levels to this.
So
They have,
they're trying to coerce you into taking a job handling, editing text and making arrangements for people to make things, yeah, I guess to publish things, right?
yes, they said I should work on the brochures.
Okay, brochures about what was the subject of the brochures?
They didn't tell me that, but I had just started designing the book cover for my poetry book and my fiction book, and they really liked my work. So that you should be the one doing all the publishing work.
But at the same
And
time, you're supposed to sleep with whoever comes in. You're supposed to be like a company prostitute, I guess,
yeah,
for lack of a better word for it.
yes.
Oh,
And they threw in another angle there. They said that me and my 3 kids need to come out as trans.
as trans.
Yes.
Your kids are supposed to switch genders? I mean, your son by
Yes,
this time is what,
they
19 or
did.
20?
The one of the first things they told me when they said they called me a Russian stooge, and they said that he sent me a message. By the time I'm done with you, all 4 of you will come out as trans, and 2 of my kids have already come out as trans.
Now, do you think that they had been worked on separately from you, maybe?
Yeah. Yes, and the scariest thing started in 2020. I felt a burning sensation on my face, dizziness, just like the way they describe the Havana syndrome. And fortunately, I had seen the Havana syndrome episode on the news, so I knew what it was.
Let's back up
So,
for our audience to understand. Havana syndrome is radio waves broadcast to make you ill or electronic harassment projected over sometimes over a pretty great distance, right?
yes, so I experienced a milder version of it, and they never stopped reminding me that I'm really lucky. They didn't go full strength on me. It was a very mild attack. They tell me I have to be very grateful that they've been kind enough to me that they only hit me with a very low dose.
Now, that's a hell of a recruitment thing that they're pushing on you. What sort of money were they talking about offering you to join them?
2 million.
A year?
No, 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 for the entire ordeal. For 10 years
Ordeal.
or for 5 or 10 years, they were offering me. And I said, that's really cheap for what you're doing to me. Because they weren't letting me change jobs either. They were holding me hostage. And they started zapping me at random all over my body, very painful zaps. And then my CIA friend, military friend, they like started asking colleagues what's going on. And they said that there's actually 2 people zapping me remotely, probably meaning from India or Russia.
Now let's talk about being zapped. In other words, you have pain in your body somewhere that there's no explanation for the pain, correct?
Yes, it's like a stinging, burning hit, and they go for private areas, so it's very difficult to talk about it.
And just for our listeners, Havana syndrome was named after what American personnel stationed in Havana with diplomatic mission ran into several years ago, and the U.S. withdrew its fledgling diplomatic connection to Cuba. At that point, I don't know if we reestablished or not. I think we did, complaining to the Cuban government that they were being zapped with electronic weaponry. And it made several American diplomats really sick. That's where it got its name. Yeah.
Yes. The first time they did it, my face felt like it was on fire. So they would, uh, so I called 911 saying there's something happening. I'm being attacked remotely. And fortunately for me, the medical tech was very familiar with the Havana syndrome situation. And he said, it's not too bad. It should clear up in 6 months or a year, whatever damage they've done to you. So don't panic, but follow through with the police report. And they assigned me a detective. The detective came home, talked to me, gave me his card, and he said, night or day, call me if there's any situation. And when I called him, he just wouldn't pick up. He wouldn't respond to my emails. He wouldn't pick up my calls. And then the stalkers were sending me messages like, hey, 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 we got the detective. He's been doxxed.
Now, where are you living at the time this happens? Are you in Indiana at this point?
Yes, Indianapolis.
Okay, I understand.
So at that point, I did call 311 a few times, and they said you would need a new detective because he's let go of this case. And then by that time, they had taken the initiative at least to fire the chief security officer. That was at least one person less in the mix, except he was still at Google. But by that time, he was apologetic, saying they made me do it. Now I don't know if he was, and he was sending me messages like, I have a special relationship with the FBI. I am telling them what's going on. I'm gathering in intel on what's happening. So he was playing both sides.
Well, that's not unusual for a confidential informant to be getting paid $3,000 or $4,000 a month for a part-time job just informing the FBI, and quite often they continue committing the crimes they were already committing, putting
Yes.
the public at risk for the crimes, which basically the government is subsidizing the criminal network by doing that, and then
Mhm.
telling the FBI just a filtered portion of what they want to tell them. Certainly not the whole truth. Yeah, that is a very disturbing aspect of our confidential informant arrangement. And I hope Attorney General Pam Bondi will do something about it because that really needs to be reformed.
Yes. And I think it was the day Ukraine was attacked. That's how I remember it. So it would have been the 24th of February, 2022.
Right.
They went full savage and tore up my private areas.
Now, did they do this remotely using this technology
Yes,
that you were
yes,
describing? Okay.
using this medical laser technology. And I was so confused. I have done nothing. I'm just sitting at home, not doing anything. And they do this to me. And I looked up the news and I saw that Ukraine had been attacked. And their fortune teller apparently had told them that I'm this strange spirit being that is defeating them or interfering with their work or whatever. So
Yeah,
they,
now you're a being who's interfering with whose work?
with the Russian people's work. So they have this,
You
they
mean
they
with
have
you mean with
they,
Russia's ability to conquer other nearby countries and rebuild its empire?
yes, they're slightly cuckoo. They're always on cocaine and alcohol the whole day.
Wait,
So
who is on cocaine and alcohol all day?
the person who sends these crazy messages to me,
Okay.
apparently, I've never met this person, but the my friends in the military and CIA who are tracking them, they say that this guy is just always on something. So don't worry about his crazy messages. He's always talking to psychics, and they might have said something else. He might have heard something else through the fog of whatever he was on. So he might have, just misunderstood something there. So I got extremely angry, and they have planted cameras and phones and bugs in my home so they can hear me. So I said, this is a message for the owners of the company. I'm going to take a picture of the damage they've done to me, and I'm going to send it to the Russian embassy, and I'm going to name the perpetrator as your chief security officer so they know who to punish. And fortunately for me, they believed me. So they at least reprimanded these people. Of course, I never got around to sending the picture.
So let's recap here. So the Google head of security you're sending a complaint about him to the Russian embassy because by now you've connected that the Russian mafia, the Voy, are actually operating this guy. That's who his real employer is.
Yes.
Okay.
It took me 2 or 3 days to build the courage to attempt to take a picture. And I was like, okay, before I take a picture, maybe I should find out the email of the person I should send it to. So I went looking for the Russian embassy and looking for their contact number. And I found out that the diplomats had been thrown out. So now there's no embassy to send it to. So why bother taking a picture? So I never took the picture. But by this time, all the way to the owners, everybody knew that this was being done to me. Not my fault. They just got mad, maybe because something went wrong somewhere. Maybe the embassy got
Now, did you just
somebody,
say that there was no way to contact the embassy at this point? No way to send them the picture?
because all the diplomats had been kicked out.
Oh, okay, right after the war started. Okay, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And their ambassador had defected. So no one was to be found. So I never got around to contacting them. And
Did
they
you ever
said,
consider sending your email and your proof and all that to, let's say, the Russian delegation in New Delhi?
no, because I already knew that the Indians were involved. They were paying the chief security officer. So I knew that nothing would be done in India because my dad retired as a 3-star general in the police. He had trained about 1,000 of these guys. And when they took it on, like the highest ranking police officer in India is a 4-star general. And I knew him since I was a kid. He took it on and he was immediately moved. The other guy who also I have known since I was a kid, he was the chief of what's the CIA equivalent. He was immediately moved from his post.
Oh,
So
so your
I
dad
knew,
was, I guess your dad was probably not just training policemen out walking the beat, he was probably training detectives. Is that correct?
no,
Your
he
dad
was
was training investigators or what?
no, he was training fresh recruits when they first came into the force.
Okay.
And then over the years, they would branch off into different departments, different states. So he knew cops all over the country, and his trainees over the last 30 years had been promoted to the topmost positions. Not only did he know people in India, a really long time ago, he had worked with a large group of KGB people who were posted in India. So when just before the Ukraine war began, remember they had Putin speak at a large gathering where there were 50 of his top officials. They
Yes.
were going through the room, and my jaw hit the floor. I recognized 2 of them. They had been fresh KGB recruits 50 years ago. And they'd come to our place. We'd been to their place. We'd met several times. They knew my grandma. My grandma remembered them. In fact, the reason I recognized one of them was this kid. He was a kid then. He was sitting next to my grandma. And when they left, my grandma told my dad, "Who was that boy sitting next to me? He is brilliant. When he grows up, he will be a very great man." And she'd been talking to him through an interpreter. So I was like, wait, my grandma's never said anything half as nice about me. Why is she saying that about this guy? I better remember his face. And 50 years later, I see him talking to Putin. I'm like, my grandma was right. So I was like, I have backup in Russia. I recognized 2 of those people in that famous meeting. And one of them offered to help me, but he has made a lot of progress, but I still do get zapped.
Well, let's try to back out of this. We've got a lot of good details now. What did these people want from you? They want you to edit these brochures. I guess they want various members of their network, whatever the network is involved in, to be able to have you as a sex slave of some sort, for lack of a
Yes.
better word. And they're willing to pay you $200,000 a year to do this,
Yeah.
$2 million over a 10-year period. But what exactly is their business? How are they getting that 2 million that they're then sharing with you as a salary? How are they getting that?
I don't know.
You don't know
What?
where what their money was coming from. Okay.
No. I think like the CIA and FBI and all have figured it out, but I don't have a clue.
Did you ever, I'm sure you've thought about, you're an intelligent one, I'm sure you've thought about it over the years. Do you think it was human trafficking or drugs or arms trafficking? What was it?
I just have not been able to pin it exactly where it's coming from.
I mean, this is a
What
lot
they,
of trouble to go through to recruit somebody. You could
yes,
simply get something on them, have them taking a bribe or have them doing something else illegal and have that on videotape and, hold it over their head. If you don't cooperate with us, we'll, expose you, we'll have you arrested. But if you do cooperate with us, we'll pay you and you can be part of our network. That would be the usual way a criminal
that,
and
that
or
is
intelligence organization recruits people.
that is what is happening. They stole my blood from my last physical and they planted it on a crime scene.
Oh, what now? How long ago is this physical? Where's
This
the
is
crime
3 years,
scene?
3 years ago, Indiana.
Okay. And did authorities get hold of you and question you about this?
No, this is just messages from the people who are helping me.
They were
They
just letting
repeated,
you know that they have biographical leverage over you. We can use this. We can give
yes,
an anonymous tip to the cops to come take your blood against us if you don't cooperate.
yes.
So you don't cooperate. You're not working for them now. And yet they didn't call the police. They didn't play this particular card, did they?
Apparently they have, but because it's being investigated, somebody was able to get to it before the cops came here. So whoever was working my case, they were able to stay one step ahead of them in this.
So there's some good guys in here working to
Yes.
keep you from this. Okay.
Yes.
All right. We haven't known this before. This is good to know.
And there are really three aspects to what they're doing. One is they believe their fortune tellers have told them that I am an important cog in the wheel of prophecy that involves them.
Now you're beginning to make sense. There had to be a motive for their money. So let's talk about, first of all, who employs the fortune tellers and who are the fortune tellers? Is it the US, CIA, Indian security, Google, the Russian mafia?
Google has a resident psychic who is like world famous. They know, I don't know his real name. Everybody calls him Rasputin.
Everybody calls him what? Rasputin after the
Yes,
Russian psychic.
he is famous.
Yes,
So,
very famous.
but he is more behavioral scientist than psychic.
Okay.
There is a group of behavioral scientists Russians who are working at Google, and they have been paid by the Indians to corral Indian Americans. The same way the Chinese are corralling Chinese Americans, the same way Russian Americans are corralling Russian Americans, Moldovans,
Yeah,
Ukrainians.
you said corralling.
Yes.
Now, what do you mean by that?
Right at the beginning in 2008, remember I told you there were like retired army officers in this mafia? What they told my dad was that Indian Americans are leaving India and making America prosperous.
Yeah.
That money rightfully should be brought back to India. So they started pumping content out on YouTube saying Indians will start getting killed in the US because of racism. All Indians should sell everything, pack up, and move all their money and themselves back to India. By the year 2047, not one person of Indian origin will be living in the West because we're going to crash the dollar from 80 rupees to a dollar down to 3 rupees to a dollar. So go and sell off your American property, your business, and move everything to India. And I'm like, but why do you hate Americans so much? So the stalker guy sends me a message. Why, what's wrong with that? One kind of animal kills another kind of animal. It's just natural. That's how nature works. So I'm like, America hasn't done anything wrong to you. America has given you business and it's created a lot of prosperity in India. So why are you attacking Americans? Even the British who conquered India and ruled India and took away a lot of wealth and natural resources, those people have all already died. The people who live in the UK now have nothing to do with it. So why are you so intent on destroying? Because they have a slogan. First, it will go for the Bank of England and the Church of England because all evil things begin there. Europe will be decimated. There will be crusades in Europe, Muslim versus Christian. After that, the US will be decimated.
Now, who is telling you this?
These are direct quotes from Indian podcasters on
Okay,
YouTube.
all right.
And some of these messages are from the stalker and the group that they're with. Because I asked them, you are making me so angry. I'm leaving the Hindu religion because of you. Why have you done this to me? And they sent a little message on my Facebook as a spoof saying, we are doing it just because the Chinese are doing it. Because they were talking about starting Indian police stations in the US to keep tabs on Indian Americans, just the same way.
Well, I have read very good authorities that the People's Republic of China actually has
Yes.
police stations in the US. I think I was shown pictures of one in Boston and one in New York City, where they have their own police powers over Chinese citizens living in the US, which I cannot understand why we would allow that to happen on our soil. So
I
India is
think,
going to have the same thing. Okay.
yes. So the message they sent me via Facebook, Facebook spoof was, we are just doing it because the Chinese are doing it. So I replied to that saying, the Chinese are the Chinese, you're Indians, you don't do it. You don't have to do everything the Chinese do. And then they said, no, America is too proud. One time we have to get together with the Russians and the Chinese and beat up America real good. Only then America will respect us. Like that is a strange way of earning respect.
Well, that's interesting. They certainly do have the BRICS alliance, so maybe that's an outgrowth of this.
You really must hear their completely disjointed, illogical reasons for doing this. It's
Well, it
all,
does sound I know that to a lot of people, this will sound disjointed and illogical, but if you've studied stalking like I have, a lot of people, not just in the US, there were a lot of people in the UK have reported the same kinds of things. I've personally had um, patients who have undergone the same kind of things you've undergone. And I saw pretty good evidence in some cases that this was happening. On one occasion, visiting a couple in the town near me in Athens, and I actually was able to track which of the houses near them actually had photo surveillance going on of their house. This was provable, tangible. They were under, and the thing was, these people had no, they weren't worth a fortune. They didn't have international connections. I I have a theory sometimes, at least part of the time, and I want you to think about this and tell me on our next podcast if I'm right or wrong, or this is a crazy idea, that this is a science experiment and you're being used as a lab rat to see what you could put somebody
yes,
through and what
yes,
effect it would have on them.
yes, absolutely. That's why they've been paid. This is like a research project for them. It's been conducted by behavioral scientists.
Okay, that makes sense. And when you mention the Russians being involved with it, I am remembering that Google's one of its founders, I believe, is Sergey Brin. His real name is Bulaskovich or something like that. He's a Russian Jew that runs Google, very far left communist type. Of course, he's a millionaire, multi-millionaire, like a lot of communists in this country are. Share the wealth, right? As long as it's not my wealth. Anyway, so there's definitely, I could see there being some connections there. So let's try to figure out together as we go through this and help our readers to figure out, our listeners, where all this is going and why this is going on, because this gang stalking is another name for it. Targeted individuals is another name for it. It's happening on a pretty wide scale. It's the mainstream media are ignoring it, but eventually it's not going to be ignored anymore. At least it's a topic we can look up as targeted individuals or gang stalking. And it certainly has gone on with a lot more than just yourself.
think we have a clue uh, in the last message that came from this person. He said, "Why don't you just learn Hebrew and move to Israel with me?"
Okay, now this person writing you, who is this one now? Tell us which.
This is either someone who is like GRU or a behavioral scientist who is managing this project. And he's probably about 75-ish.
Okay, that actually makes sense. One of the reasons that Putin does not want to in any way bomb Israel and didn't want to help Iran do it or come to Iran's aid when Israel was attacking them is why? Because the largest ethnic group in Israel is who? Russians.
Oh,
You didn't know that?
no.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
Russian is almost a second language to Hebrew there, really. There are a great many Russian Jews, many of them who were in the Russian mafia before Russia started nationalizing and kicking them out in the 1980s. I'm sorry, I would say the late 70s, well, mid 80s, somewhere in there. I think under Brezhnev, after Kosygin, and certainly under the premiers who followed that, they started, the Russian nationalists started, originally the Politburo, if you go back to Stalin's day, the Politburo, the ruling council, was 85% Jewish. And I'm not making accusations one way, this is just a statistical fact, even though they were only 2.5% of the population. Now, that's interesting thought there. I don't know. Is it because Vladimir Lenin gave his first speech of the Russian Revolution in a synagogue in St. Petersburg? I don't know. Again, it's just something that their intelligentsia came up with the ideas behind Marxism, the fact that Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, these were both Jews. I don't know. I'm not saying it's a Jewish conspiracy by any means. It may have just been the next shiny thing that appealed to these intellectuals who got tired of traditional Judaism, were looking for a different universalistic religion. And communism is basically a universalistic secular religion. And if you think about it, it's not all that secular, because what are you working for? You're going to suffer here, but hey, don't worry about it. Your great great grandchildren will live in the workers' paradise. Have you ever thought about the connections? It's very much. And who are your founders? You have the Holy Trinity of, you have Marx, Stalin, Engels, Lenin, just this tiny little group of prophets who carry the word forth. And who is the Holy Ghost? Well, it's the will of the people, the proletariat. You see, that's your Holy Ghost. So all of the elements of Christianity, of the original mind control game, are right there in communism. I think that's why it so easily appealed to Russians as they were converting Russia into the first fully communist state. If they hadn't had years and years of being Russian Orthodox, I don't think they would have understood it. I think they were all original pagans. They would have said, "What? Well, yeah, you're crazy. We're not going to believe that. My property is your property." No, I don't think so. I work for this. This is mine. That's his. They would have never gone for that vision. So anyway, there may be a deep connection there that he was asking you to move to Israel, but you don't know who this guy is. He just anonymously says, "Your problems will be over if you move to Israel with me."
He has been consistently sending me messages since 2017. And I can tell by the linguistic style who is sending me a message. So I know that about every 2 or 3 months he'll have something to say. And I think he might be trans. This is the guy who wants me to be trans as well. And he wants to be cryogenically preserved and come back when they have artificial wombs that can be implanted into the human body.
Wow. This sounds like science fiction, but I just, um, the day before yesterday, heard this on a very realistic podcast. There was you know what I mean when I say an open mic leak? Like somebody leaves a microphone on a speaking stand, and you're not supposed to hear the conversation between this person and that person who's up to speak to the public. Okay. There was recently a meeting with all the dictators, Putin, Xi, uh, Kim Jong-un from Korea, and the Ayatollah from Iran. All of them were up there. Military parade, the whole thing. I don't recall if this was in Beijing or Moscow. And the leak was like this. It was a conversation between Putin and Xi. Now, I'm not clear if this was happening, and I assume they were speaking either in English as kind of the universal language or in Russian. Xi's a smart enough guy. He may speak some Russian. I don't know. They're both very intelligent leaders. And certainly Putin speaks a little bit of English and quite fluent in German, for example. He was stationed there for a number of years, so I don't know. But anyway, this came out over an open mic. Putin was asking Xi about organ harvesting. Now, we know that in China every year they kill about, you might say they harvest 60 to 100,000 political prisoners, Uyghurs, members of other minorities whom the Han Chinese are exterminating. And the really funny thing is to see all these African communities being very close to China, which is probably the leading genocidal racist country on earth, as far as if you go back and look at census figures right after the revolution, let's say in 1949 or even in the 1960s, maybe 80% of the population is Han. There's a good 20% that's other ethnicities. Now, Han Chinese are like 97% of the country. Where did the rest of them go? Well, most of them were killed off. And that's just a fact. And China is the leading exporter of human organs. Organ harvesting goes on. It is a big part of their economy. They have whole hospitals where they're trained to do this. They have vans which gas Christians and Uyghurs and so on. And after you're gassed, your organs are pretty fresh. They will take them immediately in from the gassing van, which keeps it out of the hospital. So nobody sees how these people died. They come in on a stretcher, ER, go right into organ harvesting, and then the organs are on the international market, and they're shipped out fresh in less than a day on ice to international markets for these freshly harvested organs. So basically, Xi is telling Putin in this speak mark, that was just for your background information. Xi was telling Putin that all they have to do is replace your organs, and with our current technology, you can live to 125 to 150 years, but we're working on where basically you'll be immortal. So this clicks in exactly with what this guy was telling you. It may sound like sci-fi, but you've got two world leaders having this conversation. The mainstream media, of course, won't touch it, but it did get out, and alternative media throughout the world is putting it out there. So just filling in a gap there for people. Well, thank you for sharing your very harrowing and difficult experiences. We all pray that you will be protected from all of this and no longer dealing with this. And of course, we'd like to hear a happy story where somehow you got out of this at some point. But anyway, we'll pick up the next time, Sonali. Thank you so much for spending time with us tonight here on Shamanic Voices, where we try to bring the light of our ancient Nordic wisdom tradition to bear on modern developments and modern problems and what it's like to live in this world that we live in. And good night to all, and thanks for joining us here on Shamanic Voices. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Shamanic Voices. Please like and subscribe so that you won't miss our coming episode, where we always try to have engaging and interesting topics and or guests. Thank you, and go with the gods.